Hari Om and Namaste to all the Atma Jyotis, the divine light of the self. Welcome you all to Katha Jyoti, this week's Katha Jyoti. Let us start with Guru Vandana. Let's all close our eyes and pray. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. My pranams to all the people assembled here. My pranams to Sadguru Sri Narasimha Prabhuji, who is the inspiration behind these, the Katha Jyoti series. Okay, today we have a very interesting story, again from the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata, that's the most available and easily available and most important scripture we have. We can dip into at any time and remove lots of beautiful wisdom, pearls of wisdom from it. Okay, so this is one such story, and it is called the Ajagaropakyanam, meaning Ajagara in Sanskrit means a python, a serpent, a python, and the Vyakhyana of the Ajagara, meaning the lessons given by the Ajagara. To whom does it give the lesson? It gives to the Pandava Bhima. Okay, so the story starts when the Pandavas are in exile, 13 years of exile and 1 year of Ajnatavasa they had to do. No. So during the 13 years of exile, the Pandavas were engaged in preparing themselves for the upcoming war. Okay, they were all doing a lot of tapas, they were doing a lot of practice of their skills. Arjuna was practicing his archery, and he even went to Devaloka and got all the divine weapons so that, you know, they are all equipped. The Pandavas are equipped to deal with the Kauravas. And Bhima was also always flexing his muscles and building up his body and toning up and becoming very strong, as if he was not strong. It is said that he had the strength of 10,000 elephants. Okay, Bhima, and he was also getting ready. And Nakula, Sahadeva, all of them were very busy improving their skills, and Draupadi was minding them and helping them do all the things that they wanted to do. And at one point of time, in the Vanavasa, the Pandavas were near the Himalayas. They were touring all over. They were in the Dandakaranya, in the forest. And at this point of time, when the story starts, they are in the Himalayas, and they were going through many beautiful forests. Okay, they were going through many beautiful forests. Some of them were Gandhamadana mountains. This is what Vyasa writes in his in the Mahabharata. He gives precise location of all where all the Pandavas went. The Gandhamadana mountains and the Badrikashrama, which is near Badri. And can you believe it? They also went to China and Tushara Desha and Darada Desha. Finally settled in Dvaitavanam. This comes in the Vana Parva of the Mahabharata. And if you are wondering, oh come on, did they really go to China? Yes, they did. China is also a very, very ancient land, and going by Vedavyasa's record, obviously it was all part of the there were no visas obviously at that point of time. They could go to China. He actually says in the Vedavyasa actually writes, Chinam Tusharan Daradamsha Sarvan. Okay, this is the line which specifically says the Pandavas went to China. Okay, so it's a very interesting bit of information, so I'm sharing with you. So now Pandavas are in Dvaitavanam and they are spending some time over there. And our Bhima, who is always so restless and full of energy, he always wants to do things. He said, I'm going to set out in the forest today and see what I can hunt. So hunting was a big sport then. Now, of course, it's banned. But back in those times, hunting was the sport of Rajas. And their prowess they used to display through hunting. So he went off into the forest all by himself. And he came across many great creatures whom he easily vanquished. But there was one python. It was coiled up very tightly, and it was, in a dark corner, and Bhima almost missed it. But then he saw it. And you know what? The python also saw Bhima. And you know what it did? It immediately trapped him in its coils. the python wrapped itself around Bhima, and it wrapped him so tightly that Bhima struggled. Usually, at any point of time, this would have been an easy job for Bhima to get out of the python's clutches. But this time, Bhima struggled and struggled. The more he struggled, the tighter the python's clasp became. And Bhima was wondering, what is happening to me? Me, Bhima, with the strength of 10,000 elephants. I'm being vanquished. I'm being trapped by a python. What's wrong with me? But then he realized very fast that this python is not ordinary python. And so he requested, he couldn't join his hands. He was all trapped. So he said in a very humble tone, who are you, O great mighty serpent? Who you are trapping me, Bhima, who has the strength of 10,000 elephants? You are not an ordinary being. Please tell me who you are. So the python said, I am Nahusha. Actually, I'm a human being. I used to be a human being. I'm Nahusha, and what's more, I'm a Kuruvamshi. I'm your ancestor. I'm the son of Ayu and the father of Yayati, and therefore we are the ancestors of the Pandavas. But here I am in the form of a python, and now you're trapped in my class. And because I'm a cursed human being who has now come down to earth, I'm a python, and I have my nature. My nature dictates that I eat whatever prey I get in front of me. And I have been lying hungry for a long time, and you're the first prey who has come to me. I have no choice, but I have to eat you up. I can't help you, even though you're my grandson, so to speak. I'm sorry, I have to eat you, my dear Bhima, said the python. Bhima was aghast. He said he didn't want to be eaten by a python. Just when all the Pandavas were getting primed to fight the Kauravas and get back, Hastinapura for themselves, he was in a helpless condition. He didn't know what to do. Bhima didn't know what to do. And so he requested the python, okay, now, if it's your nature to eat me, so be it. But first tell me, how could my great ancestor like Nahusha, how did he become a python, and why was he cursed? So then we have a flashback, and Nahusha recalls the story of how he became a python. It starts with the story of Devendra. We know Devendra, no? From so many Puranas. We have heard the exploits of Devendra and how he is the king of heavens, and how under him all the Devatas function. Who are the Devatas? The Varuna Devata, the Agni Devata, the Vayu Devata, all the Panchabhutas, the elements, the earth, everything are under Varuna's, the planets, everything are under Indra's control. And so Indra is the lord of the universe, you can say, of earth and the universe, and he makes things happen. He's the king. He's called the Devendra of Indraloka. His heaven is called as Indraloka. And Indra's wife Shachi was a very, very beautiful woman. His queen was a very beautiful queen. Naturally, he's the king of heaven, and his wife has to be very beautiful, isn't it? And you know what, in heaven, all the devas have had the amrita, no? They have taken amrita, so nobody dies. So everyone is immortal and everyone is young all the time. And they have all the luxuries to enjoy. In heaven, they don't grow old, they don't grow ugly, and they're always healthy, they don't fall sick, and they have all the enjoyments of a human being or a being can ask for. That is why all the Rakshasas or many sages or anyone who has got any power, any sort of power, they always aspire to become the Indra. Indra is not a name. Indra is a position, like the prime minister or the president of a nation. Indra is the position of the king of Indraloka, right? So many asuras, many demons were always trying to snatch the throne from this Indra, Devendra. Okay, so this poor Indra is always engaged in battles with the asuras and sages who have done so much tapas. And every time the gods, that Shiva or Vishnu or Brahma, they come to his rescue, and Devendra always retains a seat. So at one point of time, Indra had to kill a person called, not a person, he was a demon. A demon because he had bad qualities. He had to kill a demon called Trishira. Trishira means the one who has 3 heads, right? So, but this Trishira, though his intention was to snatch Indra's, throne, he was well versed in the Vedas. He was the son of actually a sage. This Trishira was the son of a sage. So, though he was, his intentions were to unseat Indra from his throne, he was actually a Brahma Vidya. He had the Brahma Vidya. And then, but Indra managed to vanquish this Trishira. And then Trishira's father was so angry that he created another demon, more powerful and more ugly and more deadly than this Trishira, and his name was Vrittasura. And there is a huge, beautiful episode of this, how the Devendra with all his devas, his army of devas, and with the help of the Trimurtis, how he manages to kill this Vrittasura. That episode is very, very beautifully said in the Bhagavatam. Okay, the Dadichi Maharshi gives his backbone to make the Vajrayudha, and with the Vajrayudha, this Vrittasura is killed. So after this Vrittasura is killed, Indra starts repenting that he killed a Brahmin. Brahmin in the sense, this Trishira knew the Brahma Vidya, isn't it? So according to the old definition, which should be the all-time definition of what a Brahmana is, the one who knew the Vedas was a Brahmin. So he was ridden with guilt because he had done Brahma Hatya. It is called Brahma Hatya. They killed a Brahmin, which is a Mahapapa. It's a great sin. So Indra said, I have committed Brahma Hatya by killing Trishira. Then I had to atone for my sins. So what he did, he gave up his throne. He said, I will go and do penance in a quiet place where nobody can disturb me. And until I get back my confidence and until I know that I have atoned for my sins, I will not come back to Indraloka. He decided. And he went and he, what he did? He became very small. He took the Sukshma Rupa, it is said. He took a Sukshma Rupa and he hid in the stem of a lotus flower, which was under a lake. That's what he did. These devas and all, they do very strange things. We don't know about such things. We can only read about them and feel wonder about it all, right? So Devendra hid himself in the stem of a lotus plant. And then what? When Indra hid himself, when the throne of Indraloka was empty, all the devas lost their power. What are the devas? The Agni Deva, the Vayu Deva, the Surya Deva, the planets, everything lost their power and the earth became barren. The ground was dried up because there was no water, and the trees dried up and the lakes dried up, and all the men, women and children, they all started feeling, started suffering because of hunger and, hunger and thirst. So it was a horrible situation when Devendra gave up his throne. Just imagine if a country has no head, or if a family has suddenly the head of a family is missing, there'll be so much disturbance, in our families, or whether in the society, in the country, in the world. Everything has to be in its place. Otherwise, there is bound to be utter total chaos and confusion. That's what happened when Indra gave up his throne. So what to do? Immediately, no prizes were guessing what everybody did. They ran to Vishnu Bhagavan. They ran to Vishnu Bhagavan and prayed to him, please tell us what to do. We don't know what to do. People are dying on earth and we are not able to function. The Varuna Deva said, I'm drying up. Then Agni Deva said, my heat is drying up. Sun said, my heat is also drying up. Like that. The Vayu said, I am not able to blow. So they were all losing their powers. And so Vishnu said, the first and foremost thing what you have to do, my dear Devas, is you have to find another Indra. You have to immediately find one more Indra and establish and see that the throne is not empty. And to find another Indra, you have to do enough yagnas and yagas and prepare yourself and that new Indra to take that huge responsibility. So all the rishis, they got together with the devas and they did all those yagnas recommended by Vishnu Deva, Vishnu God, and they found this Raja called Nahusha. this Nahusha was like the Python told Bhima, he was one of the he was a Kuruvamshi, he was a Chandravamshi, and his son was Yayati, and he was the son of Ayu, and most importantly, he was a very, very, very noble king. He was a very noble king, and one of the eligibilities of becoming an Indra or taking up at that position was, the qualification was, he had undertaken 100 Ashwamedha Yagnas. One Ashwamedha Yagna itself is so difficult. You know what an Ashwamedha Yagna is, right? The kings would send a horse, and that horse would go all across the land, as far as it could go. And anybody who tied that horse, that kingdom had to fight this king who had left the horse. And if that king was vanquished, then he had to become subservient to this major king who was doing the yagna, isn't it? So like that, this Nahusha had undertaken 100 Ashwamedha yagnas, and he had conquered all of the land but he was a very noble king. So he was good. He was powerful enough and good enough to become Indra. So all the Devas, they came together and made Nahusha their king. But you know what happens? Nahusha ruled on heaven very happily for a long, long time. But then, because he was enjoying all the luxury of the Indraloka, and he became a little complacent and arrogant. Then he said, I am Indra, and everything that belonged to the previous Indra in this loka should now belong to me. So Shachi Devi, who was Indra's wife, she also has to become my queen. Why should I leave her alone? So this Nahusha went to Shachi Devi and told her, come on, now you are my queen, you will have to marry me. Poor Shachi Devi was already so upset that her husband had gone away without telling her and hiding somewhere, she didn't know where, and nobody was able to find him. And now there's this threat of this new Indra and coming and telling her, you become my wife. Poor lady, what will she do? She went to Bruhaspati, who is the guru of the Devas. Everybody had a guru. The Devas had a guru. The Rakshasas had a guru, right? The Rakshasas guru is called Shukracharya. And this Bruhaspati is the guru of the Devatas, right? So Shachi Devi went to Bruhaspati Acharya and bowed and pleaded to him, please save me from this arrogant new Indra who is claiming me to be his wife. Please rescue me from this shame, she said. So Bruhaspati said, don't worry, my daughter. I'm going to help you get rid of the advances of this new Indra. And Bruhaspati gave Shachi Devi a nice, beautiful trick to play on him. And listening to that, Shachi was very happy, and she came back to this Nahusha and said, okay, my lord, you are Devendra. Naturally, everything that is in Indraloka now belongs to you, including me. But you are so royal, you are such a wonderful person that I want you to come and fetch me from my palace on a palanquin which is being carried by the rishis. That's what she said. She said, you come on a palanquin or a doli, or you come on sitting on a palanquin which is carried by the rishis themselves, the Sapta Rishis themselves, nothing less. I don't want some petty servants to carry you. You are Devendra. You have to be carried by the rishis. That's what she, made his pride even more stronger. She pandered to his pride. She knew very well that he would take the bait. And that's what happened. Nahusha was thrilled that this beautiful woman was willing to be his queen. And so he ordered the rishis, from now on, you are the guys who are going to carry my palanquin. Wherever I go, I'll sit on the palanquin and you have to carry it. I don't want servants doing this job. What will the rishis do? This is the Devendra, he is their king, and they had to agree, they had to obey his orders, however much they hated it, right? So on one occasion, this Rishi, we know who this is. This is Agastya Muni. This Agastya, he was called once to carry the palanquin. And Agastya, as we all know, is a very short person. He was not of the normal height of other rishis. He was very short. And so when he was carrying the palanquin, there was uneven. His steps were very small and the other rishi's steps were very bigger than his. So the dolly would go up and down. When Agastya was carrying it, the palanquin, it was not a smooth ride for Nahusha. So you know what he did? He was so angry. He was so blinded with his pride, this Nahusha. He ordered Agastya to say, Sarpa, Sarpa, he said, faster, faster. Sarpa in Sanskrit is a word which has two meanings. Sarpa also means go faster, fast or faster. And another meaning of Sarpa is serpent, which we all know. So when Nahusha told Agastya, Sarpa, Sarpa, you're delaying me, come, move fast. And in his arrogance, he was so blinded by his arrogance that he even kicked Agastya on the head, saying, Sarpa, Sarpa, how can you, make a king delay? Sarpa, Sarpa. Then he kicked Agastya. The moment he kicked Agastya, Agastya said, this is too much. There is always a limit to how much you can tolerate nonsense from people, right? Even if he's your king. So Agastya cursed him immediately and said, may you fall from heaven and stay as a serpent on earth for 10,000 years. You said Sarpa, right? Go, you only become a Sarpa. Agastya cursed him. And these sages are so powerful and their tapas is so strong that when they say something, it comes true. That's why whatever they utter, they are very careful. And when you're dealing with such people who have got so much power in their words, we also have to be very careful how we behave with them. Their blessing is a blessing and their curse is a curse only. They don't talk casually at all. So, Sarpa, Sarpa. So, may you fall from heaven and stay as a serpent on earth for 10,000 years. The moment Nahusha fell from his throne and started, free fall from heaven to earth, he realized his folly. He immediately came back to his senses and he begged Agastya to help him, recover his position. So he asked Agastya, please, I'm very sorry for what I have done, but you have to give me a chance to come back to my original shape and form. Tell me what I should do. So Agastya gave him because Nahusha had always been a noble king. Only lately he was behaving like a rascal. Otherwise he was a good king. So Agastya gave him a loophole. He said, that person who knows the relationship between soul and supreme being shall be able to answer the questions put by you and he shall deliver you. So what Agastya told Nahusha is, you go down, now that I have cursed you, you have to go down on earth and stay there for 10,000 years as a python, but you will come across a noble soul who knows the relationship between a human being and God. And this person, you will have to ask your questions, whatever you want to ask. And if that person answers your question, he will be able to deliver you from the curse. So this is the story of our Ajagara, Nahusha. Ajagara means python, right? Remember? So, Nahusha, this Ajagara was telling Bhima this story. Yudhishthira arrived at the scene. He had come in search of his brother. He was wondering, where has this Bhima gone? He left in the morning. He didn't even come home for lunch. We are all waiting. Where has he gone? So Yudhishthira had come searching for Bhima. And he saw this mighty brother being trapped by a ferocious looking python. So immediately Yudhishthira also realized that it was not an ordinary python who had trapped his brother. So Yudhishthira bowed to the python and asked them what was happening. So again, the python recalled all the story, what he had just told Bhima, and told Yudhishthira, I'm your ancestor. So Yudhishthira requested, please, my dear ancestor, my Tata, Tata they say in Sanskrit for all our elders. My dear Tata, please release Bhima. We need him, to fight the war. We are also on the path of righteousness. We have to defeat the Kauravas and release the world from these cruel rulers. Please leave him. So the python said, nothing doing unless you answer my questions. I will not be delivered and I cannot let your brother also go. So this is where the correct Ajagaropakhyanam begins. Huh? Vyakhyana means like we understood, a Vyakhyana is a discourse or a talk, and Ajagara is the python. So what was the conversation between this Ajagara and Yudhishthira? This is what we are going to see now. So the Ajagara started putting questions to Yudhishthira, and Yudhishthira has to answer all the questions. This section is a very, very, very long section in the Mahabharata. But here we are just skimming we are just reading the titles and going. The syllabus is very huge. We are just reading the title of each chapter, and we just so that we get a glimpse of what kind of dialogue these two had. So the first question of the python to the Yudhishthira was, who is a Brahmana? Big question, PhD level question, right? Who is a Brahmana? Nothing less. So Yudhishthira said, the man in whom there is truth, charity, patience, unblemished character, mercifulness, tapas, and kindness, such a person is a Brahmana. So look at this definition of what a Brahmana is. It is not like how we have these government forms filling up what is your caste, Brahman, this, that, and all. No, there is a much higher eligibility criteria given by our scriptures, given by our sages and our elders of who should be considered a Brahmana. The one who has got unblemished character, the one who speaks the truth, who is kind, who does dana, dharma, who does tapas, and he is so merciful. Only such a person can be called a Brahmana. This is what Yudhishthira tells the Ajagara, because that is what the scriptures tell Yudhishthira, right? And so the Ajagara is continuing. That question answer session is going on. Viva is going on, and the python asks Yudhishthira, but these qualities may be present in a Shudra also, and it may be absent in a Brahmana. Then what next? So as we all know, there are several categories, the 4 categories of people which are traditional categories of sects in society. So the Shudra is supposed to be the lowest. So the Ajagara is saying, what if a Shudra has all these qualities of truth, charity, patience, and etc., etc. And you know what Yudhishthira said? He said, if the above said qualities are present in a Shudra and not in a Brahmana, the Shudra is not a Shudra, the Brahmana is not a Brahmana. That's all. The title of a Shudra or a Brahmana is given to a person who is qualified. That's it. It is not based on birth, on who your parents are, what are they doing. That is not the criteria for determining who is a Shudra or who is a Brahmana. Very, very, very clear. It has been given in our scriptures. So we are mistaken if we think that we can discriminate between people based on their birth and not on their merit. Merit is the criteria for everything that we should do in society. That should be the criteria that we should follow in society. So the python continues, if the qualities decide who is a Brahmana or a Shudra, what's the point of having jati then? Why do we call people who are born in certain caste with a certain name? Why we should do away with that system at all, said the Ajagara. We have a Brahmana, we have a Vaishya, we have a Kshatriya, and we have a Shudra. Why should we have all that? This is enough? No. So what did Yudhishthira say? He says, Swayambhu Manu, who is the very first Manu, that is, who was the Raja, who was the king, who was responsible for laying the groundwork of the universe. The very first, he was the son of Brahma himself. The Manu, the Swayambhu Manu was the first Raja. So Swayambhu Manu has clarified that if the jati of a person is in doubt, then he should be regarded as a Shudra. That's it. Okay, show me your Aadhaar card. You don't have? Okay, sit in this line, like that. And then you test him. If he is not well versed in the Vedas and is not of good conduct, he will be called a Shudra. That's all. Whether you are born in an upper caste or middle class or lower class or whatever it is, if you are not well versed in the Vedas, you are a Shudra. This is the definition of a Brahmana and a Shudra given in our scriptures. It is important that we should all know this, so that we can always defend our dharma, Sanatana Dharma, saying that there is no such thing, like discrimination based on caste or the birth of a person. Always, it's been a meritocracy has been practiced by Sanatana Dharma from day one. Okay. Then the next question of the Ajagara was, what is to be known? Very cryptic question. So the Ajagara, the python is asking Yudhishthira, what is that one thing which is very important for human beings to know when they are born on earth? And so Yudhishthira says, the thing to be known is Brahman, the supreme self. So this is the crux of the whole thing. The thing to be known is Brahman, the supreme self. It is beyond joy and sorrow, and Brahman is only bliss. So again, like I told you, it's a very, very, very big answer that Yudhishthira gave, because it cannot be given in one sentence like this. But what Yudhishthira essentially is saying is, when you are born on earth, when you are born on earth as a human being, it is said that the life being born as a human is very, very important, because only a human can understand his real nature, which is Brahman. We'll understand it when we grow bigger, when we are all done with our schools and colleges and universities, when we have got our degrees and PhDs, and we are pursuing our careers and successful in life. Then we have to go to a Sadguru and learn this very important knowledge. That is, who am I? What is my real nature? Am I a human being? And what is my relationship with God? These are the questions that should come to us. And when it comes to us, the Sadguru will appear in our lives, and the Sadguru will give us all the answers. Okay. So now Yudhishthira is saying, Brahman is only bliss. So the Ajagara is not willing to let go so soon. So he's saying, how can one exist without the other? How can joy be there without sorrow? How can sorrow be there without joy? How can death be there without birth, and vice versa? And how can heat be there without cold? Right? They all go together always. The opposites, they go together. Age, old health, ill health, and good health. They're all, one day you're healthy, the second day you might be unhealthy, again you're healthy. It's a cycle, right? So that's what the Ajagara is challenging Yudhishthira. He said, how can Brahman know only one thing called bliss? How can only be Ananda? If he has bliss, he should have sorrows. So this is a trick question, with Yudhishthira answers very beautifully. He says, heat has the quality of heat alone. Like heat doesn't know, fire doesn't know what it is to be not to be fire. He doesn't know what is cold, right? Like the sun doesn't know what it is to be dark, isn't it? The sun knows only light, because it is light. Heat, fire is only fire, and cold has the quality of cold alone. The ice is always cold. Does it know any opposite? Similarly, Brahman knows only bliss. This is what Yudhishthira gave the beautiful answer to this python. The python was very happy, and he said, okay, thank you so much. You are indeed the person I was waiting for all these years, for 10,000 years. Now you have to let me go. But then Yudhishthira says, wait. Now that I've got you, you're such a wise, you're my ancestor, you're my elder, you're such a wise person. I have some questions for you too, Yudhishthira said. And he asked, O learned one, tell me, what should one do to attain salvation? That is what all of us on earth wants to know. How to become free from misery? That's our only question in life, isn't it? So the python, or now the Nahusha, says, one who bestows alms to the deserving, speaks kind words, tells the truth, and does not harm any creature, goes to heaven. So how should we behave on earth? Simple. You do your dana dharma, follow whatever your dharma, Sanatana Dharma tells you, be kind to people, and do good to the world, and then you go to heaven. That's the only way to go to heaven, to be noble, to follow dharma. And so Yudhishthira asked one more question. How does the spirit take a form? Tell me about rebirth. So many big questions Yudhishthira asked, and the Ajagara gives huge answers, which we don't have time to go through right now. But in brief, what the Python tells Yudhishthira is, by his own acts, man can be born on earth or heaven or become a lower life form. Basically, the same thing. You have to behave yourself when you're on earth. If you are good, you go to heaven. If you do bad, you become a lower life form, maybe born as a plant or an animal or an insect, you don't know what. So you have to follow dharma all the time. This is the briefly what Nahusha told Yudhishthira. Then Dharmaraya asks him, you are so learned, then how could you have become a victim of pride? You know so many things. So when you are the Devendra, why did you behave in such a horrible manner, and why did you fall, from heaven to earth? This is the message of this whole story. So Nahusha tells him, prosperity intoxicates even the wise. Those who live in luxury lose their reason. That's the wisdom we have to take home from this story. When we are very comfortable in life, when we have everything, and everything is given to us without being asked. Our parents take care of all our needs right now, and the earth takes care of all our needs. We get water, we get air, we get sunlight, we get everything. Our body is functioning by itself. The blood is pumping in our veins, and we feel hungry, and the food is getting digested. Everything is being given to us, has been given to us. And what do? We take it for granted. We take it for granted. We forget that all this is the grace of God, and we become arrogant, and we forget to be thankful. And when that happens, we fall from grace. This is what happened to Nahusha, isn't it? He had God himself, God Vishnu himself had made him the king of Indraloka. But Nahusha, in his arrogance, he forgot the grace that was bestowed on him, and he became arrogant, and he was so comfortable in life that he forgot to say gratitude, to give gratitude to God, and he fell from grace. So he was cursed, and he took a lower life form as a python for years and years. He had to spend in that dark, damp cave waiting for food to come his way, isn't it? So we should be very careful. This is the message of this story, that let us be grateful for all the blessings that we have had in our lives. And let us not forget that this is the grace of God. Let us not take it for granted. Let us thank our gurus, our parents, and God, and the universe for all the grace that we have received. And let us always be humble and thank everything. Thank the universe for everything that we have received. Let us not become arrogant. Let us not become proud. Let us not become complacent. And let us always be in the dhyana of God and have an attitude of gratitude. This is the story. And my dear children, we should thank Maharshi Vedavyasa for this beautiful, beautiful wisdom. The Mahabharata, like we understood earlier, has got so many such beautiful stories. And Vedavyasa Maharshi, especially, has given us many, many more, through the Puranas. So many Puranas, he's given 18 Puranas, and he has, in all his works, he has given these pellets of wisdom, which we can learn from and adopt in life and become one with God. First, understand the relationship between me and God, and then next, I become one with God. That is the message hidden in all the scriptures. Okay, this is the story of the Ajagara, the Ajagaropakhyana. And remembering this story, let us remember our gurus and say thanks and close for the day. Okay. Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrutyorma अमृतंगमया। ओम शांति शांति शांति। लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु। हरिः ओम तत्सत्। कृष्णार्पणमस्तु।